This was the night before Halloween.
It was the night before Halloween, and oh, are we going to get into some scary stuff?
Yes, we are.
I'm going to open this episode with a bit of a monologue, and you might be thinking to yourself, "Where's this going? What are you going on about?" But I think this will become clearer later as the episode goes on. I want to cast your mind back to when I was about 16, probably 16. Every now and again, my dad would take me out to the pub with his mates, which I kind of liked because it was kind of interesting to see, like these old souls speak and put the world to rights. You know what I mean? And we go with usually about two of his mates, so there'd be four of us, and it'd be kind of me just in the corner of the table, just sipping away on the cokes. And then eventually, as the night went on, and probably as my dad had a few, he'd get me a few whiskey and cokes. You know what I mean? Not much of anything ever really happened, but there was one night in particular that's always stayed in my head. Funnily enough, the two friends of my dad's were also called Mike and John. And Mike was a big prog head, loved his prog, loved his Rush, grew up on the 70s prog and all that.
Yeah.
John, on the other hand, he was an old school punk, loved his punk music. And the topic of music comes up and they're talking about music. And this Mike, he starts telling us about this album. God knows who it is or what it's by or anything. Starts going on about this prog album. He says the whole album is a concept album based on an albatross and the journey of this albatross and its whole entire journey.
Yeah.
And he's talking about you can really feel like the emotion in his voice as he's like telling us the story of this albatross and how the music all blends into it and creates this beautiful piece of art. And at the end, I think the albatross died at the end. I'm not sure, but he's going on and he's basically saying, "Oh, it's beautiful. It was wonderful. It was amazing." This John guy goes, "What? A bloody album about a bloody bird? That sounds fucking shite, that." And he's like, no, you don't understand it. And he's like, "Fuck that, I wouldn't listen to a song about a fucking bird. I fucking listen to fucking real music and all that." This argument ensued, this punk versus prog thing, which, in the 70s was very, prominent in music.
Yeah.
I just want to tell this story straight off because it's always stuck in my head. It was always very funny, but at the same time, I
Yeah.
remember sitting there and going like, I kind of agree with both of you.
Yeah.
I think you both have a point. Like, I can see how a beautiful piece of music about basically a story of this tale of this bird on its magnificent journey can be like inspiring and soul lifting, but
Yeah.
at the same time, like it is also like self indulgent fucking nonsense, isn't it? You know
Yeah.
what I mean? So there's my little story for the
Yeah.
episode. Anyway, welcome to the John's Jam Sessions podcast.
Yeah. Welcome.
And we're doing a more Halloweeny themed episode today where we've both picked
Mhm.
albums that we kind of feel kind of match the vibe or concept or idea of Halloween. I had two different ideas originally for albums. I think one might have been a better contrast to what your pick, but we'll leave that for now. So I chose Chvrches 2021's Screen Violence. So
Mhm.
we'll get into that album first, and we'll may as well just kick it off, shouldn't we?
Get straight into
Yeah.
it.
So we get our opening track, "Asking for a Friend." I love the build up to this track. Really atmospheric. I love everything about this track. The lyrics are great. I like and the mess we made on Fridays gave me Sundays on my knees. Then like the drop and this song was amazing live. I loved doing this live. Production is so clean and tidy and lovely. All I'm gonna do is glaze this album, by the way.
Right. Okay.
The part after the break, just a big explosion, just God, lovely Scottish voice, lovely
Yeah.
band,
So
Chvrches.
I'll just rewind it a little bit and just give a bit of context as to my experience with this album because
Yeah.
I was already fully aware of this album when you recommended it to me. I listened to it when it came out. I previously I'd enjoyed a selected handful of Chvrches songs from the previous albums, songs like "Bury It," "Every Open Eye," "Clear as Blue," etc. So it wasn't a blind listen to this album for me. The first thing I'll say right off the bat is that this is hands down Chvrches' best album.
Yeah.
It shows a much greater level of maturity in the songwriting. It's a more cohesive whole album and it flows better than the others, I think. It's still very much a synth pop album, but there's a lot more live instrumentation on this album.
Yeah.
There's more guitars, there's more live drums, electric bass rather than the heavily synth dominated previous material. So that's just my vague little bit of context.
Yeah. How did you get into the band? We should have done this off the top, shouldn't we? But
Uh,
I'm so overwhelmed at the moment.
yeah, no, what it is. My partner liked a handful of Chvrches songs in the past before I'd really listened to them, and we have sort of for long car journeys that were going on. We have like a joint playlist
Yeah.
where I'd put some songs on and she'd put some songs on, and we'd shuffle the playlist, and it'd basically flip flop between our songs. And there were just a couple of Chvrches songs that popped up. Bury It was one of them. Clearest Blue was one of them. I was like, it's pretty nice and enjoyable. This it's
Mm.
fun. It's friendly. It's sort of like it's feel good and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
that was basically my partner got me into Chvrches. Then we went to see them live. Actually, just after this album came out, I heard the song Lies, which is off the first album. I thought that was an absolute banger.
Yeah, it is good, that one.
So that was where I thought, oh, I have to keep an eye out for what these do in the future. So yeah, like I said, when this album first came out, I remember listening to it all the way through and thinking straight away. I was thinking that this is definitely their best album.
Yeah, well, this is going to get thrown at me later, so I may as well cover
Yeah.
myself here. So it's funny that you said that like it's a band you share with your partner, because
Mm.
it's pretty much the same for me as well. It's kind of like the only band that we kind of mutually really
Yeah.
like together. So there is that kind of thing behind it in a way. But back when I worked a few years back in one of my jobs, Radio X was the regular radio station
Yeah.
on in the work van. Radio X, it is what it is, and you've got all your generic. You're going to hear the Arctic Monkeys, you're going to hear Oasis, you're going to hear like
Yeah.
the Cortinas and so on and so forth. Every now and again, they kind of surprise you with something, and you're like, oh, well, what's this? What's this they're playing?
Mm.
And they played the Chvrches song that was not off the last album, but the one before it. I think it was called Get Out.
Oh yeah.
And I don't know, something about it. Like as you said, I was like
Yeah.
something that appealed to me with that song. I was like, oh, I really like this.
It's
And
quite welcoming, isn't it? It's
yeah,
quite
it
sort of
is. It's quite
friendly.
inviting. It's like, come in, come in. We're not your usual like synth poppy band.
Mm.
We've got a bit more like kind of alternative in us, but at the same time, it's nice, fun music to listen to. So I remember putting that on my playlist and going like, I need to dig into these. I'll dig into these one day. Kind of put them on the back burner a bit, going, I'll get into it one day. Something will naturally come up and give me a reason to dig into this band.
Yeah.
And who would know it but none other than Mr. Robert Smith of The
Yeah.
Cure, which has been mentioned before on this podcast once or twice. This week we are getting the new Cure album, so it is very much on my mind. It came out that one of their singles was coming out and he was collaborating on it. So I was like, I was like, bloody hell. At this point, it kind of been radio silent with The Cure
Mm.
for a few years at this point. So it was very much like, oh, what's going on here? Robert Smith's jumping on a project. Not
Mm.
actually heard any studio recorded material from him in quite some time. So I was very excited to check this song out, because I was like, oh yeah, Chvrches, I like the sound of that song.
Mm.
As soon as I heard that song, that was it. Then I was like, yeah, I'm invested. I'm gonna get this. I'm gonna get this album. Checked out the other singles off the album. He Said, She Said,
Yeah.
and I think Good Girls had come out just shortly
Mm.
after. And that was it. Then I was just like deeply invested in them. Got the Scream Violence album. Remember, I didn't listen. Got it on vinyl. Put it on first listen, and like as you'll tell throughout this review, the glazing. I just loved it. I was just like,
Yeah.
this is great. This like one song had ended, another come on, and like, yeah, this is just the momentum didn't like drop. It was like, yeah. So I
Mm.
saw them live. I was trying to get you to come with us,
Yeah.
and you didn't want to go because you said Birmingham's a bin all.
Oh, yeah, it was Birmingham, wasn't it? Yeah.
The only tickets available were Birmingham, and I thought I'm not missing this. This was post COVID. Things had just opened up again. I'd kind of been in a bit of a rut where I'd just become a bit of a hermit, even before COVID. To be honest,
Yeah.
I was in a bit of a bad place around that time in my life. I thought, you know what, I need to just like fuck it,
Mm.
start going out, start living my life. I want to go see this band. I'll fuck it. I'll go all the way out to
Mm.
Birmingham, and I saw them. I thought they were absolutely brilliant live, and
Yeah, they are very good
I
live.
would, I would probably say they are in heavy rotation, not just because of the partners' mutual love for them as
Yeah.
well, but I'm always happy to just stick some of their music on.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's the background. So asking for a friend.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on asking for the nice, lovely mates? Well,
I think it starts off the album pretty strong. I think that, like you said, the melodies are very sweet, light, and airy. I think Lauren Mayberry's vocals sound a little bit less chipmunky straight off the bat than like on the previous albums. She
mm,
sounds quite sort of like she's singing in a more pleasant on the ears, sort of like
how, yeah,
it's not overbearingly sort of high pitched. What I don't know how you describe.
I would say that the three albums before this
Yeah,
are a bit spotty.
yeah,
I've
definitely.
noticed, like, because
Massively.
I've got them all now,
They are massively
and they
inconsistent.
are very like hit and miss. But
Yeah.
this was the first one for me that anyway.
I like asking for a friend. It was a good opening to the album. I think move on to the next track. He said, she said.
He said, she said. Speaking of the Cure, that's an often used Cure trope in Cure songs. He loves the he said, she said.
Right.
I don't know
Yeah.
if there's any connection there. Cute, lovely little intro. I love the vocals on this again. Kind of striking lyrics always stand out to me, quite like relatable for most people. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Look up, don't be a mess. Keep an eye on your waistline. This, that, and the other. A little bit of dubstep-ish vibes on this track, I felt.
Yeah, it's a lot more mid tempo, isn't it?
Yeah, again, nothing but praise for me. This song feels quite uplifting. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Yeah. Another brilliant song live. It was the opener, I think, from when,
Right.
when I saw them.
See, this is where we might have a little bit of a clash because to me,
Yes.
this song is just okay. Yeah, it's a bit plodding. I think the chorus for me doesn't really get going there.
Feel like I'm losing my mind.
It's a bit of a predictable melody. It's okay. It's a single, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it very much smells of a single. When you listen to this song, it sounds. We'll get into a run of tracks later in the album, which I believe to be the best run of tracks on the album, and this song sounds like it was made to be a single to me.
Yeah.
The auto-tuned vocals post second verse, I think it is as well, sort of spacey, robotic-y.
Yeah, yeah.
I wasn't really a fan of that. It was a little experiment, and yeah, it was just one of them. It was just a bit like, yeah. Again, this track's just okay. I think it's a bit of a step down from the opener, if I'm honest. But yeah,
Okay, okay. I won't
yeah.
get grumpy. I won't
No,
get
yeah,
grumpy.
I think it's a fair critique. It's not.
Yeah. Then we get into California, nice bass groove on this one. I love the guitar parts after the main chorus. The down, 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 down,
Yeah.
down, 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 down. Such lovely hooks throughout this album. Loved kind of like the melancholy on this track. Again, I'm really impressed with Lauren on this album. Like the delivery of certain lines really hit me. Like, didn't go to the funeral, heard you cry on the phone. Your voice is so beautiful. Now I need to let it go. And no one ever tells you there's freedom in a failure. It's just certain lines like that where it kind of hits you. I think, to be honest, like this album is like, I think in life you find albums that you kind of latch onto for certain reasons, and I think like going back to kind of what I was saying a bit, like the state of mind I was in when this album came out,
Yeah.
like certain lines just kind of hit out to me, and it was
Yeah.
like kind of felt like a bit of a reach out. But
Mm.
what was your thoughts on the only criticism I say about California, and I think it's been said to death on a lot of the reviews I've checked out for this album, is it's just another the dark side of California. Oh, be
Yeah,
wary
subject
of
matter.
California. It's been done to death, and that you've got the Red Hot Chili Peppers, Californication.
Yeah.
You can think of there was a band similar-ish in vibes, Wolf Alice.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
They touched upon it. It seems like a very
That's a very good album, by the way. That.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
But yeah, California, I thought it was a decent little track. It's got some nice, cleanly strung guitars that just ring out. They just hang in the background. Nice atmosphere created on this song, I think. And I like the chorus as well. I think it was a solid tune. At this point in the album I'm listening to, and I'm wondering where Halloween connection comes in, though. If you want to just very quickly just give us a bit of detail behind
Right. So
why you picked it for
yeah,
this.
yeah, I can see that to an extent. For me, it's kind of how the band interpreted it, where they said, they didn't outright say this is a spooky, scary album,
No, yeah.
but they said a large source of like inspiration from this album came from the soundtracks of like horror cult classic horror films of the 80s.
Right.
So we're talking like John Carpenter.
Yeah.
We're talking like the Halloween theme, like Nightmare on Elm Street, Friday the 13th, The Thing. We're
Yeah.
talking about them synthy, eerie kind of things, and I do think maybe not so much on He Said, She Said in California, but I think it's definitely on Asking for a Friend, and I
Yeah.
think it definitely comes later, but it's just them kind of eerie synths. You
Mm.
definitely hear it on the start of How Not to Drown. That
Yeah.
I think I think the next song gets more into the theme, and there's the track "Final Girl" as well, which is kind of a play on how on horror films there's always like the one last surviving girl, and she's kind of been dubbed as the final girl.
This
So
this theme will return later in the episode.
oh yeah, it certainly will. So
Yeah,
yeah, it's one of them. As I say, I had two choices. It was between this and a Cure album, and I thought you're gonna get sick of the Cure. You're gonna be like, oh, stop going on about the Cure. To me, this is Cure month. Everything that goes on this month
yeah,
is for the Cure for me, because you've got to understand that this has been a 16-year
yeah, yeah.
wait between album cycles. The last Cure album that came out, I wasn't even an adult. This is
Mhm.
probably the first, could possibly be the last. Anyway, we'll be getting into that. We'll be getting episodes dedicated all towards the new Cure album. So we'll leave that for now.
Yeah,
Don't worry.
yeah,
We get into Violent Delights, and I even put this on my notes. The spooky vibes are kicking in a bit here. The verses are fine, but it's the chorus that really does it for me again. Like
yeah.
Lauren's delivery on the vocals, I think it's fantastic personally.
Yeah, this is a great track, and this next run of three tracks is the best run of tracks on the whole album, starting with Violent Delights. It's one of the best choruses on the album. I just love the way it bursts through after the quiet verses, and there's
Yeah,
just so much colour shining through, isn't there? There's a twinge of sadness here in this song as well. Sort of gets the feels going a little bit, doesn't it?
yeah.
This is a replayable track for me. I think it is. It's great.
Yeah, the drums
Highlights.
so fast, and
Yeah,
it is. It's like a heart racing kind of yeah, great track. Not loads to say about it. Just standard great track. How Not to Drown. Yes, here we go. This is it. This is the jam. I love the menace vibes on this song, and kind of like power hook chorus. Some real solid drumming, some actual drumming being played, rather than kind of just kind of like the drum loops, drum machines.
mm.
But let's not flirt around this. The best part, the best part of the song is the featured artist Robert Smith of the lovely Soft Baby Cure. Robert's performance is outstanding. He blends into this band so well. I think their voices work together beautifully well, and I love his level of involvement rather than just showing up, doing a little verse or something like that. He's actually playing guitar on this. He's actually helping with the composing of the song. He's all over this song.
It's like he's a band member, isn't it?
Pretty much he is a band member in this track, providing guitar and singing throughout. What a pull! I'm so made up for this band to get someone like him on the album. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
There's one thing that I have to say about this album is that I do think that they're not this album, this band. I do think they're criminally underrated. I
yeah.
really do. I think they for what they produce, especially this album, I think they should be a lot more.
Mm.
You know what I mean.
Yeah,
I think they're a bit too low on the festival slots, and I think
mm,
that they're playing second hand, aren't they? They're doing a lot of support slots and stuff like that.
yeah.
I think they should be out there doing arenas personally.
They're still very much in that in between sort of in between an alternative sort of indie appeal and a mainstream pop appeal, aren't they? They're still
Yeah,
very much in between. And this album, they definitely take a lot more risks. They definitely try to expand the sound a lot more. How Not to Drown is one of them tracks. It's a lot rockier. It's a lot more. It's a lot more. How I don't know what the word is, but it's got that gothic feel that a lot of the classic Cure albums have, doesn't it?
yeah, yeah,
It's got haunting atmosphere. I think Smith's feature, like you said, is great. The only complaint I have with this song is the ambient outro. It drags on a little bit too much. It's a nice sound, but I think it could have been maybe 30 seconds. It doesn't need to be a
yeah.
minute and a half. But
On
other than that, this is one of the best songs on the album, easily. It was the first single I heard from this album back in the day, and it stopped me in my tracks when I first heard it.
Yeah, on the vinyl, this is the end of side one. See,
Right.
like this, I always harp on and on and on about vinyl, but it
Mm,
truly is like a different experience, because you kind of see albums as the sides
yeah.
rather than the whole thing. So this ends side one, so I can see this extended outro. I can kind of see that
Yeah, I suppose.
being like a purposeful thing, because
Yeah.
it does end. So I think it ends side one.
Yeah.
I think it does,
It
yeah.
is bang in the middle of the
And
album.
live, that outro goes on for a lot longer live, because I think that's when Lauren kind of goes backstage and I fucking gets her kiss on, new little outfit change and all that.
Yeah.
So when we get into Final Girl, I think this is quite fitting with that kind of Halloween stuff. Lovely,
Mm,
spooky Halloween. Really feel the horror movie soundtrack influences on this track. The bass is just being so lovely and groovy. Again, another big power chorus. Real sing-along jam. This went off live. I remember this. She does her big swears the white
mm,
t-shirt will fucking splatter blood on it and all
yeah.
that. Loving the local vocal delivery, and use of more guitar-based instruments on this song.
Yeah, yeah. It was always my favourite song on the album. I've got to say, the verses, the chorus, the sound palette, like you said, it's got that gothic influence. the chiming, ringing synth leads.
Mm.
I love the bass on this track. So do 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 do. It's great. It's a brilliant song. Like I said, this run of tracks from Violent Delights to Final Girl, pretty flawless. I've got to say, it was the best run of tracks on the album for me. Got nothing else to say about Final Girl. I think it's a replayable banger.
Yeah. Now we get into Good Girls. Another poppy jam, nice little cute F-bomb thrown in.
It doesn't sound right coming from such a cute little innocent
Yeah.
voice, does it?
Really hooky synth pop chorus. I wish this was the actual music they played in clubs because I'd be loving it personally. As you say, going back, like they're still kind of more like associated in the indie crowds, aren't they? I love the little yeah at the end, before like the guitar comes in.
Yeah.
That rocking little guitar. I just think it's dead lovely and good girl coded.
Oh, right, here we go.
Oh, you got problems.
Right, I'm gonna don me hard hat here. Right, I think that this song stalls the momentum of the album a little bit. I just think the melodies feel a bit phoned in and they're a bit predictable. It's just the good girls, na na, good girls, na na. It's just like okay, like
Won't justify you now.
I think it sounds a little bit like an earlier Chvrches track off one of the previous albums to me.
Yeah, yeah.
It's a little bit, considering the 3 tracks that it came after, I think it's a little bit out of place. Feels a little bit out of place on the album. Again, it was a single. It was a bit like He Said, She Said, but I probably prefer He Said,
Yeah,
She Said
he
to
said,
this.
she said, how not to drown good girls.
Yeah,
With the singles, where was there
I
any
think
other
so.
singles?
There's
I don't think
Lullabies
there
or
was
something.
any. I don't remember it being a single. It might have been a post-album single. I
Yeah,
remember the build-up. It was them 3 tracks that went out before the album.
yeah, it wasn't to me. This wasn't a highlight on the album. Good Girls. It just sort of again. I think it had such a flow going. It had such a momentum going, and then this song come on, and I was just a bit like, okay, that's a little bit of a step back, but
Yeah,
that's just my opinion
I,
anyway.
I find this interesting with pop, and like one thing I actually do out of pure curiosity sometimes is I listen to like pop albums
Yeah,
because I'm like I always think to myself, what on earth is on these albums?
yeah, yeah,
You know
yeah.
what I mean? Like
I get it.
what
Yeah,
are the deep cuts on a Katy Perry record?
yeah.
What
What?
are
How are you imagining this album flowing for
yeah,
12
yeah.
tracks? Yeah, yeah,
And I think the last pop album, I thought, oh, let's give this a go because maybe I might talk about it on the podcast one day. But then I just got bored and shut it off when it's a bit crap. Was Sabrina Carpenter's
yeah,
latest album because she's blowing up at the moment, isn't she? And no, I did kind of find them a bit earwormy. That like, please, please,
yeah,
please. There's literally the best songs on that album. All the ones that have come out as singles,
yeah.
and the rest are just so generic. Throw away. Oh, let me just write a pop like a 2000 pop hit. There you
Yeah.
go. Chuck
Like I
that in
said,
the album.
to find some good pop albums, you have to dig deeper than the charts, don't you? And like I said, I could throw a handful of pop albums at you that are great, but you will never hear them in the top 40. You'll never hear them singles.
Well,
But
that's where it becomes contentious, though, is it? Because is it pop if
well,
it's
it's
not?
Churches is like that.
Yeah, yeah.
Churches is like that, and you definitely call this pop, wouldn't you?
This is what I was kind of trying to get at, though. Like, I think this band should be like these should be ahead of like some of the people in the top 40. Like this should be ahead of it. This should be hitting the top 40 for me because like I don't see
Yeah, yeah,
why not. It's poppy enough. It's
yeah,
appealing enough. You know what I mean? It just feels somewhat frustrating when Taylor Swift literally just
yeah.
shits out a load of slop and throws it at the wall, and people just lick it up like,
Oh
oh
no.
my god, this is so deep and great, and it's like, yeah, you know, you've got Jack Antonoff's
Mm.
sprinkling of magic over it, but other than that, it's pretty
Average.
poor, yeah, average to poor. Last 2 albums have been very mediocre, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? But, yeah. Anyway, back onto this album. So we get Lullabies. I'm so bloody sorry if I'm a broken record, but I love this song so much. I feel like it's a bit overlooked. A lovely ballady type song off the album. Lauren's vocals, lyrics, and delivery is so hard hitting for me. A real sadness in her voice. I just want to give her a lovely like pat on the head and tell her it's all right. And
Yeah, I think
give her a smoothie.
I think it's a better done version of Good Girls. This song, I think
Mm.
it would be a better choice for like a lead single for the album than that song. I think the chorus goes much harder. It has a much more creative melody there. Side of the screaming.
Yeah,
creative
and the piano,
melodies.
ding, 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 ding.
Yeah, it's a pretty good song. Yeah, I enjoyed this. I think this if this song had come straight after the run of tracks, the three run of tracks that I was on about before, I think it would have made the album flow a little
Yeah.
bit better. But yeah, no complaints really about this song. I thought it was pretty good.
So we go from Lullaby to Nightmare. Now them. This is the first song I find quite forgettable, to be honest. Maybe it's just getting to the back end. Maybe it just doesn't manage to stand out for me. I don't really care too much for it. I still think it's solid, but it just doesn't stick to me. I love the breakdown towards the end, though. And again, this is another song where you can really feel them 80s horror soundtracks kind of
Mm.
blended into the song.
Yeah, it was a pretty. I thought it had a pretty loud and rocky chorus. Again, I didn't have loads to say about it. I just nice house type build up and then burst into that loud chorus. Pretty solid track. Not loads to say about it. I quite like the heaviness of the chorus. Yeah, again, my main issue with this album is not that I don't like this album because I don't think there is anything terrible or even bad on this album. There's nothing bad on this album really. There's just only a handful of great songs, that really do stand out to me. There's a handful. I wouldn't say this entire album makes me go, wow. It's just like a few tracks do, and a few tracks make me go, that was decent, it was pretty good. That's just the main issue overall I have with it. It's not that it's, like I said, there's nothing I dislike on this album when I go through each track and we're talking about them. There isn't anything that I think that's really bad. If that came on, I'd turn it over and all that sort of
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah.
So Nightmares is just another one of them tracks where like I won't revisit it, but I don't think that it was bad either.
Yeah, and then we get into the closer. Better if you don't. This gets me in the feels. This jam. It's a song I pull out after some heavy drinking and I'm just on there on the couch like. The
Yeah.
synth pop is kind of stripped away from a more standard alt rock track. Can you tell you don't? I don't like me at all. I drink and I think too much. I think I should quit. One of the two. Better if I don't think too much of you. Great song, great closer. I'm left with nothing but positives on this.
Yeah, it, it had some nice elements that I enjoyed. It had the nice grungy sounding guitar in the intro. It had the sound that I would like to see them experimented more with over the
Yeah,
course of the
I'd,
album.
I'd like to hear more from that kind of sound. Yeah,
The beat comes in. It's pretty catchy. It's got me nodding along. It's more of a straightforward rock song. I was expecting like a big crescendo or breakout chorus to finish the album off, but like it never came. A little bit underwhelmed by this track again, even though I don't think it's a bad track. So yeah, I think it just ended the album on a little bit of a sort of underwhelming note for me personally.
all right,
So
okay.
we'll get into our summaries of the album now, if you want, if you would like.
Yeah, so my summary is every now and again an album will just speak to me. Something about it just strikes a chord. Often over kindness can be put down to nostalgia, but with this album only being 4 years old, you can't really throw that accusation. Sometimes it's not about how good the writing, artist skill, or cultural impact that makes an album great, but how that album makes you feel. Do you want to re-listen to it again and again? Does it leave an
Hmm.
impact? For me, this
Yeah,
album does.
yeah,
I love the songs, I love the sound and production. I'm a big fan of this band, but nothing in their catalogue hits this good to me. Now the thing is like it's like when you're writing these notes, like you feel so positive about what you say, and then when you get to actually recording the podcast, get a bit of stage fright, and I'm like, have
I've
I
gone
gone a bit
too
too
far.
far with
Yeah,
this? Have I gone a bit too far? Especially when you hear the other side and you hear the criticisms and you take them on board, and you're like, yeah, I can actually see that. I can actually
yeah.
see
My,
that.
my my aim is not to change your score of this album. I'm not
Yeah,
trying to do that. I'm just trying to give you what I think.
but from my perspective, like this album is always like it's a go to, as you say. Me and the partner both like it, so it's like I'm picking a record. Like
Mm.
I'm not really gonna want to be exposing it to bloody Corn
No.
or like you know what I mean, something like or even something too out there from Radiohead, like the
Yeah,
In Rainbow albums I've just got. I'll throw this on and
yeah.
I'll happily enjoy it all from start to
Mm.
finish. I won't be like, oh, I might just skip side C or I might just do this. So for me, it's
Yeah.
going to be the second ever 10 out of 10 for me. I know, and now I say that, and I'm a bit like, oh, do a hold back, do a push it back, do a push it back. But
Trust.
like I say, it's an album I've latched onto,
Yeah.
and maybe I can't explain fully why that is.
Yeah. So
Maybe I
sometimes you
can't
can't.
justify it, but I just can. It just, as I say, it just strikes me. I always used to put it on.
Yeah.
I still put it on regularly
Mm.
now. It's a go to. It was one of the only times I've ever been a gig and I was wanting them to play new songs. Every time one of the new songs came on, I was buzzing. And like at the end, I was like, oh, I wish they just played lullabies, or better if you don't as well. Usually it's the other way round, and it's usually like, oh god, new song, all right, okay, get onto the older stuff, you know.
It depends, doesn't it, who you're going to see?
It
But yeah,
does.
I agree with the sentiment that this is hands down Church's best album. Like I said, I think I said everything that I wanted to say before, but I'll just summarise it again. I enjoyed a handful of moments from this album a lot, like really great songs I would put on my own playlist and listen to. The highlights for me are the opener, Violent Delights, How Not to Drown, and Final Girl. There was nothing on this album that I thought was awful or even bad, to be honest. I just found a lot of it had me going, yeah, that was decent. Failed to blow me away with anything groundbreaking that I felt like I hadn't really heard before. But I appreciate that they are looking to expand on their own sound, and they are definitely growing and evolving as a band. I don't feel like they ever truly commit fully to one sound or style. It still seems to me like they're finding their feet and they're finding sound. With that being said, I think that this band is capable of a better album down the road. I have given this a 6.5 out of 10.
Oh,
I did enjoy it.
hell.
That is a positive score. That is a positive
It
score.
is, yeah.
Like I said, I think I've summarised it as best I can. I am definitely going to keep up to date with what this band is doing. I think this is an improvement on anything they've done in the past, and there's potential there. I'm calling it now on the podcast. There is potential for a better Churches album down the road.
Yeah, I think that's possible, more than possible. The only thing that worries me is like it's been 3 years now, and like remember when we did the Everything review,
Yeah, yeah,
and I kind of said like I was impressed by how a band of only 14 years has put out as many albums.
yeah.
Churches again started in 2010, didn't they?
Mm,
4 albums, like it is a you know I'm always a quality over quantity guy, but
yeah, I
I
get.
kind of feel like it's 3 years. Like you were on a good momentum here. Don't like break the momentum. Like they toured heavily for a couple of years, and Lauren's doing like a solo project thing now. But I'm like, oh, get back in the studio,
Yeah,
keep this fire burning, and keep putting out great stuff like this.
I do get it.
It's built like if they put this album, if they were a bit faster on their album cycles. As I say, this is only album number 4. Like I do think, like you said, it can only really get better and better from here.
Yeah.
The first 3 albums, I did think are a little spotty at
Mm.
times. Like the more like cherry pick albums where it's like, oh well, I'll take these songs and
Mm.
I'll leave them on the tree. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, definitely. Like I said, it's a bit. I don't know. When I heard that Lauren was doing the solo stuff, I was a bit like, "What's the reason for that? Is there a reason? Is there a creative difference in the band? Because
Yeah, because
it'd be a shame."
she was given like the freedom of her own kind of
Yeah,
songwriting. Like all the lyrics seem very sincere in their own stuff. It does always give you a bit of when bands go off and do that, especially when lead singers go off and do solo projects, and
mm,
you're always a bit like, is this some kind of vanity project? Is this
yeah,
just some kind of feed the ego of like, oh, what I want all the credit for this? Because
yeah.
obviously, I don't think Lauren's that involved with the actual instrumentation part
No.
of these albums or anything like that. But maybe it's just a passion thing. Maybe it's just like this is a me thing that I have to go out and do.
Yeah.
All the power to her. I've heard a couple of her solo songs, and nothing's really
No, it's
reaching out to me as much
same.
as Churches does. I do think she needs this power synth pop
Mm.
kind of behind her to elevate it a bit. You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Like I
But
said, I think they were hitting towards something sound wise with this album that I was like, okay, go on,
yeah,
expand
carry
on it.
on. Yeah.
And it seems to have that broken up a little bit. So we'll see anyway, I suppose. We'll see what happens. You never know what's round the corner, do you?
No, round the corner like a spooky Halloween monster or something.
Oh, speaking of spooky
Something
Halloween
horrible.
monsters, something horrible.
This way comes. So the next album we have from what was it? You wouldn't call them a band, a group?
Yeah, I would call them a band in the sense that, like, a Death Grips are a band. There's a couple of producers, someone that plays live drums, and a rapper, an MC.
Mhm.
So we have just listened to a very pleasant, very cutesy, very instantaneous
Yeah.
synth pop album, and
A
now,
breezy album as well. It comes
yeah,
and goes, doesn't it? It's only 10 tracks, which
yeah.
I love, by the way.
Yeah, I mean, there's not a lot of difference in actual lengths between these albums, but for you, it probably felt like a lifetime.
Yeah.
We hard pivot now into some experimental industrial noise hop. with very overt horror-themed lyrics and instrumentals. So if you just allow me a little bit of time to
Go on, get
give a bit of
into it all.
background on this album. So this album is second in a two-part series of horror anthology albums by the band Clipping. First of them being 2019's There Existed an Addiction to Blood, followed up a year later with this album, which is called Visions of Bodies Being Burned. So lovely, happy vibes all over this part of the podcast now. So when tasked with coming up with an album to recommend for this episode, I was given a very specific remit. The theme is Halloween,
Yeah.
horror, and that was it. Pick an album that you feel best represents the Halloween theme. So it got me thinking, and it got me thinking about, like you were talking about The Cure, it got me thinking of some gothic themed albums, and I was like, oh, that's sort of spooky. That's got a spooky sound to it. But then this album twigged in my brain, and I thought, well, this album is specifically, it's horrorcore. That's the genre. It's like, this album is overtly horror. It's overtly referencing classic slasher films from the 80s and stuff like that, like Friday the 13th, Halloween, John Carpenter stuff and all that. There's a lot of Halloween sounds. There's a lot of spooky soundtracks, sounds that are chopped up and incorporated into this album as you listen through. So I thought, what better to recommend to John? Never in a million years did I believe that you'd listen to this album and like it. But I will just let you quickly summarise what you were going to start your notes with. Go on.
Well, I just got straight into the intro, but I'll give a bit beforehand. You advised this. This was something I never heard before in my life. When you said clippings, I was like, what on earth is this? I was kind of half expecting something similar to like maybe everything, or
Right.
something like that. I don't know. Part of me was like the name clipping. I was like, maybe that could be something. Maybe I
Yeah.
don't know. I came into it with a somewhat like fresh approach of like your last recommendation was good. I've got faith in you. I know you've branched a bit further out than me in the world of music, and you've gone down some avenues, and you've picked up some smaller bands that I've not heard of.
Yeah.
So I had a bit of faith, and I put them into Spotify, and I kind of see the group picture, and I'm like, something about these blokes just doesn't strike to me that they're going to be making the type of music that I'm going to be, jumping for joy for. And, I get this album, I see the album cover, all rotten, horrible teeth on a black, backdrop kind of thing. And I'm like, okay, I like dark stuff. I like Nine Inch Nails, I like the darker, the album I was going to originally pick, Pornography by The Cure.
Yeah.
Maybe there's something to this. I've got to say, right off the bat, I hated this. I hated, from the moment I pressed play to the moment I stopped it. The entire thing I thought was like, oh my, you know what I mean?
Oh,
like,
brilliant.
This is just music I do not like, I do not connect with in any way, shape or form. So let's, now now the cat's out the bag.
Yeah.
Let's get into it with the intro. Spooky intro with squeaks and cracks, pants and ominous booming, getting louder, boom, 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 louder and louder. It does a good job there to get the tone. Then some rapping starts and my eyes roll. What am I in for?
So the rapping on its own is what instantly made you think, like, I know you're not the biggest hip hop fan in the world, but is that just because, I don't know, what is it about it that you can't get into? What is it about, like, is it the lack of melody? Is it because it's more rhythm based than melody based?
I'm thinking to rap music that I like, and it's a very small,
Yeah.
But one artist I do quite like, although nowadays it's kind of soured quite a bit, is Kanye West.
Right.
Really, I got into a big Kanye West kick like a few years ago, and I listened to the Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy album. I thought, this is great. This, like, I really like the production, really like the music, and like like, again, and the melody. He's not just kind of like monotone rapping throughout it. There's loads of other artists that featured on it. I think every song, like he usually only has like a few like verses, and then it's off on to like whoever the featured artist, someone like that is. The one song I really like off that is a Hell of a Life. That down, 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 down. Runaway is one of my friends. Like, I love that song, Runaway, with the piano. And I like the rapping in it because, like, I feel like there's like emotion in his voice. I feel like, although it is silly, where it's like, I sent this bitch a picture of my dick.
that always
You know what I mean?
that always made me laugh. That line.
But then the rest of it's really like beautiful. He's like, I guess I just don't get it with female,
Yeah,
and I've never been too good at that. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I
yeah,
feel it, I feel it. And another album I really liked by him was 808 and Heartbreaks in 808 or whatever it was. Some of it was a little spotty, but there was some really like good songs on that, and I was
yeah,
like, oh, this is like a bit synth poppy in itself. So maybe you could grasp something from that and
yeah.
see maybe what it is, but I think it is down to the melody. What I want in a song really is I want to get some feeling from it. It could be happiness, could be sadness. You know what I mean? I want it to tell me a story. I want it to be like a window into the artist's soul in a way, and I want it to be something that I could interpretate in whichever way I kind of feel and how that song makes me feel.
So if I say to you that the reason you don't gravitate towards a lot of hip hop is due to lyrical content and the fact that you personally don't connect with some of the stories that have been told, would that be?
Yeah, because I didn't grow up.
Yeah.
I didn't grow up in a ghetto
Well, that's
in Detroit or like,
do you
you
know
know
that's
what I mean.
that is fair enough.
I didn't grow up
Yeah,
in a gang. You know what I
yeah, yeah,
mean. Like, I've had a pretty probably what some people would say is a pretty sheltered, protected life.
yeah, yeah.
Really, you know what I mean.
So
So
so that's a sort of that's the relatability thing, isn't it? Which is fair enough because
yeah,
really, if you're looking for that in the lyrics, then and you will not find it
and I
in a
just
lot of hip hop.
yeah, when it's just and I'm rapping and going and everyone's showing and it's horror movies and it's really scary and I'm going and
Yeah,
I just can't pick it up. I'm just
yeah,
like to me it turns into white noise. It turns into tinnitus.
right, yeah,
You know, it's just that constant like in the back of my head, like, you know, I'm trying to focus on like what's the music doing, what's the keys doing.
yeah,
I'm gonna fucking stab you in the back bits because I'm a silly man and I'm jumping in and gonna can, and it's just like, oh man, will you just
yeah.
maybe slow this down, maybe put a bit more nuance on it.
Hmm.
I don't know. It's just every time I put a new track on, it was just straight on the I'm a scary little monster and I'm gonna get you because I'm here forever and I'm gonna kill you and you're gonna die, bitch, for fucking hell. And I'm just like, oh, I'm gonna fucking, I need a rest. I
Yeah,
felt drained. It drained me. It like felt like I'm not a Harry Potter fan at all, but do you remember the Dementors out of Harry
yeah,
Potter and they like suck the soul out your head? Like I felt like one of them was just like by me, like sucking everything out of me. I was like, oh my god, I want
yeah.
to hear lovely Lauren sing me a beautiful Scottish melody right now. Like, I don't want this.
So that being said, right, the intro of this album, yes, it
Yeah,
does. It begins.
spooky. Yeah, okay.
It begins with a very eerie intro, which, like you said, those distant thuds of the tom drum
Mm.
that just get louder and louder and closer to the listener as the track goes on. It's a tone setter, like you said. It's a creepy, creepy tone setter. David Diggs comes in with his rapping towards the end of the track, and it's so distant and sinister, like he's singing through like a talk box at like a drive-through restaurant or something
Yeah,
like
yeah,
that.
that does sound a bit cool. That, yeah,
The very last thud of the drums as it gets louder, and the
it's
very
just
last
clipping, doesn't he, or something?
yeah, he says focus, it's clipping, and then it boom, and then
Yeah.
it turns into this like 10 seconds of static noise, which is so loud that it sounds like it's about to just cut out at any moment. And then it does cut out, and the next thing you hear is the start of the next track.
Candlesticks in the dark, visions of bodies dead and burned. Candlesticks in the dark, visions of bodies dead and burned.
Warped refrain, which is so twisted. To me, this is a proper earworm. I know you weren't a fan, but I think this is one of the best songs on the album. I absolutely love this song, man. I love it. When he comes in with his rhymes and it's just backed by this pulsing hypnotic drum machine. Doo, doo, doo. I just love that little drum fill, the sort of the embellishments and the flurries all over the beat. I loved it, man. I love this song.
Okay, say the name, Luke.
Candlesticks in the dark, visions of bodies being burned.
This song sounds like Closer with its drum loop.
Yeah.
The song Closer by Nine Inch Nails is a fantastic track. Its tense build up, strange sexual tension, and lyrical concept, matched with its creepy, hellish sound, makes it a great combination. Trent Reznor's vocal delivery is intense, from his harsh whispers to I wanna fuck you like an animal. Such a raw, intense track, and I love the synthy outro. That's my review of Closer by Nine Inch Nails.
I thought everything you said there could apply to this song as well. So that's good that we agree. Yeah, yeah, I did. I think it was so sinister and so sort of under the surface, and I think the deadpan rapping style works perfectly. I don't think this would work with Kanye West going, send a bitch a picture of my dick in the background.
Just don't give
I,
females.
I think this needs that sort of like the sort of can you say it again? Can you say it again? Sort of the monotone, like it gets under your skin a bit. But yeah, again,
Witchboard and interlude skit thing of two girls doing a Ouija board.
the production on the interlude, the first interlude on this album, I thought it was really unsettling. Like it was like inspired by the classic the Ouija board horror films and whatever, with the two female characters spelling out the sort of the he is here thing. I thought, oh bloody hell, that's creepy. And then boom, boom, boom with the knock on the door. I forgot to mention in the say the name. I'll just skirt over it now. The outro, the tension building, the crescendo, the synths, the keys, the bells.
Mm.
Ah, great, great, great. Then we get into this interlude, and it's about 30 seconds long, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it transitions into the next track, which is 96, Neve Campbell. If anyone knows the horror film history, Neve Campbell is the actress that played, is it Cindy in the Scream franchise?
Never watched the Scream franchise. No.
So Neve Campbell is the actress that plays Cindy in those
It came
films.
out in 96, didn't it?
Yeah.
Right, it makes sense.
So the final girl, we're talking about the final girl theme that you
Mm.
mentioned earlier, is where it comes into this album, 96, Neve Campbell. What did you think of this song?
I felt it went on forever. Just irritated me.
Yeah, fair enough. What irritated you specifically about it? Was it the two female features?
I can't remember. Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I didn't like that, and it was
Yeah.
the M words getting thrown in and out everywhere and all that. And I'm just like, to me, this is the music that I always associate when like knobheads drive past you in them cars and they're like blurting like out the hip hop music.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, it's just this, isn't it? It's what you hear when you're walking down the street and like stupid car goes past
I
me. Like,
suppose I get what you mean. Yeah, I think it's a much more straightforward hip hop track than a lot of the others on this album. But there are still the odd little bits where at the end of the chorus when Eurohead to die about it, and then it goes boom, 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 boom with the door knocks again, and in the background you've got the sort of shrill, the sort of John Carpenter sounds in the background.
yeah.
I thought that was a really nice addition to this very pretty bog standard hip hop track.
I think I'm deliberately being a cunt here for a bit of humour value and stuff like that. But one thing I will say is like all that stuff that's sprinkled in throughout it, like it certainly achieves its goal. This is that like if it, like when I sent you Screen Violence and you're kind of like, oh, I don't really get the Halloween feel for this. Like I definitely can't say that about this.
No, yeah.
Because like I get this, I get fully that it's intended to be horror themed and spooky and scary and stuff like that. But it's just I think there's a wall for me, and you just can't, like, some things just can't get through that wall. It's like yeah, something underneath. The man raps fast on this one, and he goes down, down, down. My ears hurt. I wanted it to end.
So something.
I think this was the one. No, it's the next one. We'll get into the next one. We get into the next one, but
Yeah. Oh, yeah, yeah.
when you went on about before about like loudness and the noise and stuff, like I just found this like unpleasant to listen to.
Right,
I did not enjoy it. Like it is funny in the way how like we end up picking two random albums. It's similar to like the Placebo everything episode, where like the two completely separate bands kind of do have this interweave. Like this is kind of like the opposites thing, isn't it? You've got welcoming music that you think like anyone from an indie head, an alt head to girl who listens to Capsule Radio will enjoy, and then you go from that contrast to this, where it's like
this is like trying to turn intruders away. This is like be gone if you can't.
And this is what I don't like. I don't. Like I kind of like, and it's such an awkward topic to get into, but especially because I host a music podcast. But one thing I just don't like, and it agitates me, is music elitism. Hey, the one phrase that like it pulls my hair out is when people say this is music for musicians, and you're like, what does that mean? You mean this is music that's just inaccessible to the majority of the people in the world, that like you want to feel like you're in a special little club and like, well, I listen to this, like you won't like it because you're not a musician. Well, I'm a fucking musician, and there's certain musician bands that I don't like. So am I not a real musician?
Yeah, I don't
like. I'm not saying this is this. purist for this band, but
Yeah, I
I'm
was gonna
saying
say,
that like when unaccessibility comes in, and when these kind of like, oh, this is something that, oh, you wouldn't want to play this to your grandma type thing, like I don't know, like it's something just rubs
it's
me the
ni-
wrong way
the thing,
about it.
the
Like,
thing is that this type of music is niche. It knows it's niche. It's trying to be niche. It's not trying to appeal to a mass audience. People that listen to this are not expecting this album to be enjoyed by the majority of people. People that enjoy experimental music are not stupid enough to think that they could play this album to anyone and they'll like it. I would struggle to find another person who I know in my life that would enjoy this album. I genuinely do, but that's because it's so niche. That's not me saying that
do you
they.
think that your ears are cooked? Like,
No,
do you think that you've gone so far down the
no,
rabbit hole that like you know what I mean? Like, I don't know. Part
no,
of it to me just feels like this is.
no. What it is with me is sometimes I just want to hear something different. Sometimes I just want to hear a different sound,
Mm,
and I gravitate towards that. This isn't an album that I would put on, and it's not endlessly replayable, even to me, as someone who likes this album. This isn't an album that I go back to an awful lot. There's only a handful of tracks off this album that I'd pick out and put on a playlist with other songs. Like, I mean, a handful. The appeal of experimental music like this, it's hard to try and explain to someone that doesn't enjoy it. With regards to, we'll try and get back on track anyway with the track list. Something underneath. This is it's not a song that is like it's just a masterclass in technical MCing to me. A technical MC, and it's not a sing along song. It's not a sort of song with any earworms or any
I
any
noticed
any hooks.
he shouts out, "Hey, yeah, by Outcast," doesn't he? What's cool and being cool,
Yeah,
high school.
yeah, yeah.
Down, 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 down.
So I think the instrumentals are like they're so odd and so warped and so sort of like off putting to majority of people. I completely get why you listen to this and think this is just senseless noise. Like it's got that synth lead that just sits under everything, cuts through the mix, seeps and trickles through the whole track. It's like unsettling. But I just think his flows in this song, like I just think they're unbelievable. And I think the performance, the way he starts to get more and more frantic in tandem with the drums also speeding up. It's as if he's been chased and he's like struggling for breath and he's trying to get the words out. And then it breaks down, the music cuts out, and it goes into the a cappella rapping. And to me, this is even more impressive from a technical standpoint because he's so tight on the beat despite there being no beat. This track is simply just a display of technical mastery more than anything else. Completely get why you would listen to this and not enjoy it. I do, I get it. To me, I listen to this and I'm just like this is skill. This is skill that I'm listening. Like like you listen to a mad guitar solo and you're like,
Yeah,
how's he played that? This is the rap equivalent of that for me.
this is why I came up with that albatross story at the beginning of the episode,
Yeah,
because it's like I do wonder sometimes, like you've got to reach deep inside yourself sometimes, and you've got to be like, where do you stick your flag in the ground? Like you just said with the amazing guitar solo. If you say to me right now, "What an amazing guitar solo," I'm going to say "Comfortably Numb" by Pink Floyd.
yeah, yeah,
I'm going to say, one of Frusciante's numbers. I've recently got myself, as you can see, a little Squire Telecaster there.
yeah.
And for the first time in my life, I've been sitting there going, I want to learn some solos. Like I was always like very like intimidated by them. Like, oh, I'm not even gonna like even going to attempt that.
Yeah.
I stuck to my bass. I mastered my bass. I've been sitting there playing solos. And I'm like, oh, this is really fun. But one thing I've noticed, and all right, I am just playing easy beginner stuff. But even the stuff that sounds somewhat complex is like actually quite easy.
Yeah,
Like I was messing about with a bit of shredding before, and I was like, well, this isn't like. I always thought like, oh, you've got to be a master to pull this off.
yeah.
Anyway, I'm going all over the shop now, so I'm on a weave and I need to bring it home. But what I'm kind of saying is like I don't like I don't like these guitarists that just like
Yeah, yeah.
I like holding that one note.
Yeah,
Just,
yeah. It's
when you
obvious.
feel it and you see it in the guitarist's face, like for Shanti, you see it. He's just fucking hammering them. He's just on the hammer-ons, but it just sounds so good and it sounds so emotive.
Like I said,
And I think that's a
yeah,
big thing for me is emotion.
yeah.
And when it's
Stuff like
deadpan rapping, I just
that.
don't feel the emotion.
So stuff like that is objectively more pleasing for me to listen to than like a wankery shred, sort of like something that's so technically unbelievable that it's like that you couldn't possibly play it. To me, that's not as pleasant to listen to as like Comfortably Numb solo or anything like that.
Yeah.
I agree that one of them is objectively more musical than the other, but again, that's why I would say that this track, Something Underneath, it's not a song that I go back to because of that, because it is just technical. It's just purely technical. And there's some production tricks that I really like, but yeah, we'll just move on from this track 'cause we spent a lot of time on it. It's a display of technical MCing, isn't it? It's not a track. It's not a core track for me. This feels like an interlude. This song.
So we get into Make 'em Dead. Fuck off with this noise. Just unpleasant. Who actively chooses to expose their ears to this noise? I got really pissed off. Like, fuck off.
So this track is heavily power electronics inspired. It's built around this buzzsaw synth that is just so loud and ear
Oh, I hated it. The first time I listened to it, I had headphones on, and I was like,
Yeah.
This is actually hurting me.
It's basically the spine of the track, this synth lead, and like I said, it cuts through the mix, it cuts through everything. The rapping's built around it, everything's built around it. Personally, I don't think this track needs to be as long as it is. I think this could
It just went on forever.
I think this could have been another interlude because as brutal as that synth lead is, it really does. It starts to burrow its way into your ear canal as it goes on, and this is what I imagine tinnitus would sound like. This synth lead throughout this track.
Again, it's completing its task. It's deliberately being unpleasant.
Yeah.
Because again, it's technical. Like this sound we know will agitate ears, and I can see people being like, "Oh, this is like an enjoyment." Like Anthony fucking Fantano.
Yeah.
We'll get into in a bit, but like, oh, this is like an endurance test. Like you say, I want something different. I want a challenge. Give me a challenge.
Yeah.
Sometimes it feels to me like them people who like will eat like 15-year-old fermented fish.
Yeah.
And they're going like, oh, well, actually, it's you open the tin. I think it's actually illegal to like open the tin in like certain areas. Like it's such a delicacy, and like everyone's like, oh, but it tastes so good. I was like, how can that taste any better than a nice kebab on a drunken Friday night? Like it gets to a point where like there's only a certain like threshold that like it just feels to me it's like, well, I want to be, look at me, I can eat this fucking mad fish thing that everyone else is like repulsed by and goes away. So I don't know, I don't want to like insult and kind of like be audible to fans of this of this band or this type of music. But for me, it just, back to the Albatross story, is it starting to make sense to you now why I told it? I'm John who's saying, why the fuck would you do that? That just sounds stupid. But the other one is passionate and he understands it and all that. I think to me is I just don't understand it. I just don't.
How boring would this podcast be if we just sat here and agreed on absolutely everything and basically just gave the same takes about every piece of music? Wouldn't it just be?
It would, and I've done a bit of a re-listen recently. Like every now once I get to about 10 episodes or so, I kind of go back and I'm like, let's listen to this kind of like this period and see how things have moved and changed and progressed. And in preparation for this podcast, because the last time we did one of these album recommendations was the Placebo Epinephrine, and that was like that was probably before episode 20. I think
it was a long time.
It was quite a while ago, and that one is a very like. It was kind of earlier days in the podcast. You can tell we're deliberately kind of being nice to each other's picks in certain aspects. So,
I think I was honest.
I think I was quite honest as well. But like at the same time, it's like you're not really bringing up, you're not really nitpicking on things. You're just trying to like have a pleasant. And I kind of felt like it's a decent episode, but it's not Worst Songs of the Youth. It's not, it's not one of the episodes where it's like, oh, I was really, I listened back to it and I'm like, I'm really proud of that episode.
Yeah,
I really like that one. So yeah, obviously, there's always gonna, but I think this is the most diverse we've been on two albums, and probably will be, to be honest.
I'd say so, yeah. So yeah, again, Make Them Dead. Not a track that I go back to because I think that does get a little bit, even for my ears, that does get a little bit overbearing. That's the next song, She Bad. The creaking little gates or the doors opening that open up the song. I think they're definitely lifted from a horror film directly. I don't know which one, but this is track I just think is okay, really. The background instrumentals are really creepy, but there isn't really a lot of variety in them. The track feels like it gets a little bit samey as a result. I know you'd probably say the same. I do like some of the lyrical refrains, some of the flows and stuff, but again, this song I just thought was okay. I think this period in the track list, I started to think this could do with the momentum picking up a little bit now. What did you think of this track, if anything?
If I'm not getting my ears assaulted, then I'm getting bored by the similar raps and throws with a load of booms and noises in the background.
Yeah.
That's all I've had to say about it. Like, I really struggle to grab much to say, really, because you know what I mean? It's like, by this point in the album, I've got it. It's like,
Yeah.
I understand it now, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
And it's just, it's a race to the finish line for me now. It's like,
Right.
let's just get through it.
Yeah.
And you know, as I go scroll down now, my notes get shorter and shorter and shorter.
Oh, see, mine are getting longer because I think it picks back up after this. I think the album picks back up after this personally with Pain Every Day, which is one of my favourites on the album. It's got very industrial instrumentation, very cool, like 7/8 time signature with some IDM inspired drums. Sounds a little bit like Aphex Twin or something. It's got the sort of tinny metallic sounding drums on it. And like I said, the 7/8 time signature, it brings some variety that I think was needed after the last track. I think it really brings the tension building. It's the feel like I'm being chased atmosphere that's come back from earlier in the album. And I think the outro to this song with the blissful strings that are coming in, the sort of like weeping, melancholic strings, with the frantic beat in the background, and the drums that they sort of disappear into the distance. I think it works really well, and it offers the first chink of light or hope on this album because it's a very dark album. So I think that with them strings, the blissful strings in the background and the skittering drum beat, yeah, I just think it gave me a little second wind when I was listening through to this album. So I'd like to hear your alternative take on this track.
I'm sorry, but all I put on my notes was Pain Every Day. Tell me about it. I
Brilliant.
tapped out. I had just
Yeah.
tapped out by this point. Like, I came into it. I always, for these albums, I always try and give them two full listens minimum. I remember Get to Heaven. I at least played for 3.5 times.
Yeah.
So make of that what you will. But
Mm.
like, I was just at this point, I was just sat there like, I can't believe he's done this to me. I can't do it. I just can't do this. I know because like we kind of spill the beans to each other in preparation for these podcasts,
Mm.
which sometimes I don't like because I want like a fresh reaction, but
Mm.
sometimes you just can't help yourself, can
Yeah.
you? Because sometimes you've got something you just want to get off your chest, and you knew straight off the bat. I was like, as soon as I put this album on, I sent you a message going like,
Yeah.
what is this? Why have you given me this? You know what I mean? Because I was thinking to myself, I said, I know you've ventured into your music. I know that you managed to find a lot more time than I do in my life to sit down and listen to music and stuff. And I was like, there's bands that I know you've mentioned and you've brought up, and it's like I want to listen to them, but I want a reason to listen to them.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, I wonder if he'll recommend this one to me, or
Yeah.
wonder if he'll throw a bit of them at me, and I can be like, oh, I've wanted to listen to them for a while.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll get straight to work. Yes, boss. And it was like this, and I was like, out of everything you could have chose, like
Yeah. Get it. Yeah.
you chose music that you knew I would just absolutely hate and have no,
Yeah.
no enjoyment in listening. Hang on. What's up, son? What? Podcast.
We're nearly done, mate.
Okay.
Really.
Pain
Yeah,
Every Day.
I should have known when I recommended you Wu-Tang Clan and Public Enemy, and you completely wrote them songs off. I should have realised that hip hop was off the menu at that point.
That's what I mean. Like, is it though? Is it though?
Mm.
Will something come out across? Because
Yeah.
again, there's certain NWA songs that I quite like. There's certain like Ice
Yeah.
Cube songs I quite like. We've ripped them to shreds on this podcast before, but Eminem, there's still some Eminem songs that come on.
Yeah.
Like my Spotify playlist is a mess. It's a dog's dinner because it's basically all my life of listening to music on one big long,
Yeah.
like the like songs and stuff.
Mm.
And every now and again, like an Eminem track will come on, like the song "Bad Guy" off MMLP2. I really like that song. I think that's really good.
Mm.
And then there's some other stuff, and it's like, yeah, quite like this and all that, and like,
Yeah.
so I don't want to write it off completely, but it's gonna take it's gonna take something
Yeah.
to hit me, like it really is, and I don't like. To me, this music sounded similar to kind of like trap music to me,
Right.
and I don't like trap at all.
No, I can't.
I just don't like deadpan. I don't find I'm not impressed.
Yeah.
Like, sometimes where like, you see people in the street like juggling balls of fire and on a unicycle, and like there's a big crowd around and everyone, ooh, wow. I look at that and I'm like, yeah, okay, that's impressive. I couldn't have done that, but
But
I'm going
it's
to
not
move on.
interesting to
It's
you.
not interested. I'm not interested. So
Yeah.
when there's all this technical, production and all these things thrown in,
Yeah.
it's like, yeah, I appreciate that. I understand that. But I'm not interested. I I just don't care. I don't care if he rhymed like crime with shrine or you know what I mean. I don't care about that. It's just or he's managed to rap for 30 consecutive seconds without
Yeah.
gasping for air or anything like that.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, that's impressive. That's cool, but I don't enjoy it. You know what I mean?
No.
Like,
So yeah, that being said, check the lock. It's much more of a straight hip hop head bobber. This I wouldn't imagine you'd find much to say about this song. It's very much in the same vein as Say the Name.
I just said there's nothing to say that I haven't
Yeah.
already said. You
So
know?
like you said, for me personally, I love the beat on this. I think it's nasty as hell. I think it's thudding that beat, that the sort of bass drum, the synth on the chorus is just like is lovely to me as well. The dum, 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 dum. This is one of my favourite songs on the album, along with Enlacing, which we'll get into later. Yeah, again, there's not a lot for you to say about it. Is the Looking Like Me is the next track, and it's got a feature on it. A fellow experimental noise hop act horror. This is heavier track instrumentally. Sounds Death Grips-ish. It sounds like it's got some rock in there, some distorted guitar, and it's also got some booming Nintendo-esque synths. Thought they were a little bit overwhelming. I thought they were a little bit like taking over, drowning everything else in the mix. But I appreciated the variety on this track. I thought it brings another guest vocalist into the mix, which it offers you a different vocal sound to David Diggs's very dry delivery, like you said. And yeah, I don't know what you had to say about this track either.
No, nothing. I was just. I really. As I said, I think I got into it, but then didn't finish my sentence before. Like I know that you were anticipating the rage and the anger, and I mean you were
Mm,
coming in with your boxing gloves ready for a sparring match. But I warned you and I said I have a threshold for anger, and then eventually I just crash and I get tired, and I'm like, at
mm,
this point, I've been listening to this album, we're on the back end of it now, and I'm just exhausted. Like
yeah.
all my frustrations have been like let out on the first half of the album, especially that
Mm,
one with that just like horrible noise ringing in my
yeah,
ears
yeah,
and
mate.
all that.
Yeah.
And it was like just like it just I'm putting one song ends, another one begins, the rapping starts, the boom,
Yeah.
all this fucking noise and shit, and you're like, oh fucking, for God's sake, you know
Here
what I
we
mean?
go again.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get it, and I'm putting myself in your shoes, and I'm imagining listening through to this album, and like, yeah, maybe it wasn't the best idea for me to make you sit through this.
I can't think of one album that I could give to you that you would despise that I
It's not,
like.
yeah,
There's plenty I could think of. Oh, this be a wind up. Next episode
yeah,
we're doing Lulu by Metallica. You
yeah,
know what I mean? Next episode we're doing the Death of Slim Shady. But I don't like them either. I can't think like just looking at my record collection there.
yeah.
Like I know you like some of the Cure. I know you like Iron Maiden. I know you like it. I've got some Taylor Swift records. If you want to try one of them, but
Again,
you
though,
know what I mean?
would I
But
find it as uncomfortable to
I
listen to
don't think you would.
as you
You'd probably
found?
just be like, at best, this is somewhat catchy pop.
Yeah, again, I have to apologise, but it's made for good content.
It's made for good content, and like part of me was like, oh, I'm not even going to go near the Clipping fan base on this, but
No.
I think I will because maybe they'll find this interesting.
Yeah, yeah,
Maybe they'll appreciate that we're giving this kind of smaller underground
yeah. The good cop, bad
band
cop thing as
some
well.
yeah.
It makes for interesting discussion, doesn't it? I mean, I do like to, even though I'm a sort of somewhat a fan of this album, I do. It's interesting to hear the complete opposite end of the spectrum, in terms of what you thought about it.
Yeah.
So I'm still glad I recommended it, but I won't be going this deep down into the experimental rabbit hole for you in
No,
future. Rest assured.
Stay on the surface level.
Yeah.
So we get Drove, best track on the album. Great, loved it.
It's just farmyard noises.
Yeah.
It's an interlude. So yeah, there's nothing to say about it.
Eaten Alive, I'd rather listen to Eat You Alive by Limp Bizkit on loop for the rest of my life. Yay, loads of noise. What a treat. What a delight. 9 out of 10 album right here. Shits on Chvrches.
Well, it's Eaten Alive is oh man. This track is so insidious coded. This is the one track on the album that genuinely frightened me when I first heard it. Like I was so confused. Like there's not really a beat to speak of, but the backing sounds are just like it's like field recordings. It's like a piano being thrown down a stairs, and at the same time, pots and pans are falling in the kitchen, and there's a mouse or a rat rooting through your drawers, and there's just these sounds, and you're like, I listened to this song in the dark in the house on my own, and I genuinely started to fear for my safety. It's an interesting track, but it's one that oversteps the mark in terms of the scariness a little bit for me to truly enjoy it. I think it's just a little bit experimental wankery, to be honest. You know, if I wanted to put someone off music for life and I had to pick one song to make them listen to, I would probably pick this.
Yeah.
So a very interesting track, like I said, but that's about it. That's not really a track, it's just a collection of sounds.
Yeah. Body for the Pile. Just shook me on that pile, please.
Body for the Pile is back to a more conventional-ish sound, but it still has some really uncomfortable, uncompromising power electronics again towards the back end that start to sort of feed into your ear canal. They end abruptly rather than carry on for 5 minutes, though, like make them dead. So I thought this was a decent track. You can't run, you're just a body for the pile, body for the pile. I just love the little sort of chorus, which is like, better take your last breath right about now. Don't know, it was good, it was creepy, it was nice, I enjoyed it. And then we get into the last track on the album, Enlacing.
I somewhat enjoyed the first 18 seconds. There you go, there's my review.
I think this has the catchiest chorus on here with the "Get your ass down to the floor." Thought it was so psychedelic in the background, the rich textures all over it. It's one of the more pleasant and instantaneous sounding songs on the album. I kind of wish there were more moments like this on the album, though. I kind of wish there were more melodic choruses like this, and like you said, with the sort of warp backing vocals. I thought I'd say this is probably my favourite song on the album.
Yeah.
We'll summarise because we've done this. We've done this for a while now, haven't we? This album.
Yeah.
But there's a lot to get into, isn't there? So
right. So my positives are this album clearly achieves everything it sets out to do. Production is clean, every sound, crack and squeak is crystal clear. The rapper, he seems to have a solid flow. I'm sure this is ideal music for someone. But that someone is not me, not in any way, shape or form. Listening to this album was torture. I gained nothing from it whatsoever. I have absolutely no added respect for the artist, no added respect for hip hop or whatever the hell this classes itself as. To your dismay, as much as I'd like to, I have to refuse to rate this.
Oh, you can't do that.
Just know how happy I am that I will never voluntarily listen to Clipping ever again in my entire life. I mean, do you want a rating? Do you really want a rating?
In my head, as I was driving here today, I was thinking he's probably going to just give this a 1.
If I rate this, I just feel like as much as I've had a bit of fun ripping into this, I feel like I'm just being disrespectful.
Yeah.
Because it's like, it's
not trying to appeal to you, is it?
It's like Sabrina Carpenter's management reaching out to you, going, "Oh, could you review this album on TikTok?"
Yeah.
And then like, well, of course you're gonna shit on it, aren't you? Of course you're gonna be like, "Oh, this is some shite pop." You know what I mean? So it's like, I don't know. It just feels unfair. It just doesn't feel right for me to turn around and be like, 1 out of 10, stinky. You know what I mean? It's a bit. It's being a bit of a fucker, and I have enjoyed being a fucker. Sometimes it's fun to be a bastard, isn't it? It's fun to be a villain, to be a what do they call it in the wrestling terms? A heel.
Yeah.
It's fun to be that little villainous goblin. This is crap. I hate this shitty album. You know what I mean? But you know, I've got to put my sensible head on. You know, I'm trying to run a music podcast. I'm trying to do this with some level of dignity and respect. And
so this album, like I said, this album isn't for you. It's not designed to appeal to you, is it? It's not sort of like, and like I said, I didn't anticipate you liking this album when I recommended it. Overall, I'll sum up my thoughts on this album anyway. I think it's certainly an experience. It's totally unique in its sound palette. It can be genuinely frightening at times and hooky enough for me in others. And I think for a lot of hip hop fans, they would probably say the same, even if they're not into the abrasive sounds all over this album. I think a lot of hip hop fans could appreciate a handful of tracks on this album. I love the way the horror samples are sort of chopped up and incorporated creatively in different ways throughout the album. I don't think it's a perfect album by any means, but I do find it genuinely intriguing. There's enough to keep me engaged throughout. It's an album that needs a certain setting for me to listen to. Like, I won't be throwing this on in the car or wherever just to get a catchy little sort of, oh, this is a nice little tune to sing along to. That's not really the appeal of this type of music, but it's definitely a creative and unique sounding project, though I expect the band to move on from the horrorcore sound going forward, because I'm not really sure how much this concept has left in the tank.
What's their earlier stuff like? Is it just like normal looking hip hop and stuff?
It's got the noise elements to it, but not as full throttle as this. It's not as experimental as this. It's more straightforward in terms of the concept. It's not trying to be wildly experimental and out there. but it's still got the element of the industrial sounds, the noise, the synths. I'd give this album personally a solid 8 out of 10. I think it's good, but I get why most people, 99 people out of 100 who I recommend this album to, would dislike it. I get that totally. It's an experimental album, so there you go.
I've got one more summary from Tom. I reached out to him and I went,
Yeah.
what does another outsider think of this album? Like you said, you throw it to 100 people, how many you're going to get something. So this is what Tom had to say really quickly. He thought the production is brilliant and the electronic music backing it was smooth. The hip hop side is nothing new or particularly outstanding. It's not bad, and he likes that it's not first person centered. However, it's nothing great. It's the production and backing that are its shine's brightest.
Yeah.
So that was his thoughts, and one last thing I wanted to bring up is obviously if you're into music and music reviews, there's a certain music critic out there who's pretty famous at this point in it, Anthony Fantano, the Needle Drop. I've been watching him for again, like it's he's an odd one because like I'm always like, why do I watch this guy? Because like his taste of music is definitely wildly different to my taste of music, but every now and again, like a new album will come out and I'll be like, oh, I'd like to know what his thoughts are on this album. Sometimes he surprises me with like his praise. Like I've heard him praise like Iron Maiden's Number of the Beast really highly. I've heard him praise System of a Down really highly and stuff like that. And sometimes he's quite funny again with the new metal stuff and what we've done. Like it's really funny when he like rips into like Limp Bizkit and Korn albums and stuff like that. So yeah, what I did is I checked his YouTube video review for the Chvrches album, and I checked his review for this album, and it did wind me up a bit because I think he had a lot of the same criticisms as you did on the Chvrches one. But what frustrated me was like he was like, oh, this sounds really like throughout the whole review he's like, oh, this song's great, really like this. And at the end he's like, oh yeah, well,
5 out of 10, didn't he? Or something?
Yeah, a light 6, I think he gave it, and he was like, yeah, but at the end of the day, it's just trying too hard to be synth pop bangers. And I was like, how can you try too hard to be synth pop bangers? Like when you are a synth pop banger band, of course they're going to try and do that. Now I listened to his review of this, and again, he's just praising the production and all the technicality, and it's like
sound play and stuff. But
and then he gives it a 9, and it's like, oh fuck it. And I'm looking at the comments, and everyone's like, well done, Fantano, you really did this album justice. And I saw loads of comments going, can't believe Pitchfork gave this a 6, like, and they were all getting mad about this, going like, that's a disgrace and all that. And I think with an unbiased mind, this probably is a 6 out of 10 art album for me. This is 6 out of 10 coded. This like it's spooky, experimental, and it goes out there. But is it that good? Not really.
Well, that's it. That's the great thing about we've got such polar opposite views on both of these albums that we've reviewed today, haven't we? Well, I enjoyed the Chvrches album, but I didn't think it was anything special. I think it is trying to be an album full of synth pop bangers, but my problem is that there's not enough bangers on there. I've got no problem with the sound that they're pursuing on that album, and there are a handful of absolute bangers on there. But that's why I gave it the rating I gave it, and sort of, you think it's nothing but bangers. That's why you gave it a 10 out of 10.
Yeah.
So we both agree that what these two albums are shooting for are the same thing. It's just whether that is to your personal taste or not, isn't it?
Yeah. But anyway, listeners out there, let us know what you think. Am I completely out of order for bashing clippings? Is Mike overlooking the greatness of Good Girls? let us know. Obviously, I'm going to try and reach this out to each of the band's communities. I think last time the Everything fans really turned up for it and really enjoyed it, and we're very grateful that we covered the band, whereas the Placebo fans were just, oh, whatever, shut up, go away. So it'll be interesting to see who we can bring into this. Clippings fans out there, as I say, I enjoy putting on a performance sometimes. I enjoy being the Joker, being a bit of a heel, being a bit of a villain, but yeah, I hated it. I hated it. Start to finish, I just did. I hated it. That's all I could say about it, really.
Yeah. No, that's like I said, it's personal opinions at the end of the day. That's all this is and has ever been. like I said, there's going to be some episodes coming further down the line where John's going to recommend me some stuff that he likes. And, well, stay tuned to find out what I think. Let's just say that.
I'm just thinking of what we can do for the next album recommendation. You know, I'm really going to rub my hands together and be like, how can I get my own back on this?
Yeah.
Black Parade incoming.
Oh, no.
But anyway, that's it from us. So I think the next episode I'll be putting out will be the new Cure album review. Stick around for that, and then after that, we're returning back to our curated lists, aren't we? And we're going to do the best songs of our youths.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to that. It's gonna be some good ones on that, and I'll end the podcast with a bit of a palate cleanser, a bit of a fun story, and an ongoing saga in the podcast. So, me lad, who I don't know how much of that I'll edit out, but my young lad, he's coming up to 8 now, loves Fortnite, plays Fortnite all the time. Every now and again, he comes down, I'll play Fortnite with me dad. All right, son. So I'm on Fortnite and I see this thing called Fortnite Festival. I'm like, what's this Fortnite Festival? And I go on it. It's basically Guitar Hero on Fortnite.
Oh, right.
So I was like, oh my God. I was looking for the songs going, oh my God, they've got Toxicity on this. They've got like, you know what I mean? They've got all these great songs and I'm putting them on and we're playing it and I'm really enjoying it. I look down the list when we're picking the songs to play. And who shows up? Can you have a guess who shows up on the list of songs?
Not Clipping.
No, not Clipping. No. A band we've discussed a few times, and one song in particular that we've Disturbed Down with the Sickness.
Oh,
so I think, go on then, let's play Disturbed Down with the Sickness. I'm on the couch, I've got my PS5 controller, my son's sat next to me on his Nintendo Switch, playing along, can you feel it, that shit, jamming along, and we're playing it, I'm doing good, I'm getting a good score on it, I'm hammering it. And then we get to the Everybody Dream.
It's not, is
and
it?
I'm sitting there going, this is Fortnite, this is a game for kids. This'll be this mythical single version that you've told me about, weren't it? They're gonna cut this. It was in there. The domestic breakdown was in Fortnite Festival.
No.
Of course, with any swear words blanked out, but it still had that. No, mommy, don't do it again. Don't do it again. I promise. Don't, mommy, you heard me. Yeah. It was in there, mate. It was in there.
Wow. Unbelievable.
In 2024.
Big old 2024.
Fortnite. You're familiar with Fortnite, aren't you?
Yeah.
Disturbs Down with the Sickness with domestic breakdown included is on Fortnite.
Wow. I will be thinking about that all the way home.
So this is going to be an ongoing thing. I'm always going to be looking out for Down with the Sickness. And if I have any updates on Down with the Sickness, I'll let you all know. Anyway, this has been the John's Jam Sessions podcast. I should have done all this on top, but I keep forgetting. Thanks for listening. Please give us a follow on Spotify. Please check out our social medias. Check Mike out on Music Mike on TikTok. Doing quite well there, aren't you? You're getting a lot of engagement, stuff like that. John, this podcast also has a TikTok as well, but I'm very useless at keeping up regular content on it. But please, if I get more follows and more engagement, I'll start putting more stuff out.
Yeah.
And we'll see you next time. Have a very nice Halloween.
Goodbye.
You can either have fun and put Nightmare Before Christmas on and have a nice, lovely time. Chvrches coded, or you can sit there in the dark and
watch Insidious.
Watch Insidious or like Cannibal Holocaust. That's a more suitable film for clipping. Right.
Goodbye.
Goodbye. See you next time.